This conference will now be recorded.
Excellent. So hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. My name is Amelia Kim and I am the Lifelong Learning Librarian at the Montana State Library, and I'll be facilitating this webinar today. We also have with us our two panelists, Jamie Greco, who is the Director of the Glacier County Library in Cut Bank, Montana, and then Alan Ellis, who is the Children's Services Librarian at the Billings Public Library in Billings, Montana. And they will be sharing their experiences with the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program with you all today. So a few things before we get started. As the robot lady announced, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our Vimeo channel afterwards for public viewing. And I'll send the link out to that when I upload the video, hopefully tomorrow. These slides will also be made available on the State Library's SlideShare account and will be available after the webinar as well. If you have any questions during today's webinar, there is a chat box in the corner, and you're welcome to put your question in there at any point in time, and I'll bring it to everyone's attention so that we can address it. So as we get started, here is our agenda for today's webinar. So the first thing that we'll cover is learning what the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program is. Next is to learn about the options for setting up and running your program, and that's where our panelists will be chiming in and sharing their experiences. And then we'll be discussing ways to work the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program into existing programming and early literacy work that you're already doing, and also the Ready to Read program. And for those of you who are out of state, the Ready to Read program is Montana's early literacy initiative that's run out of the state library, and there's various activities that librarians in Montana participate in. And for those who are out of state, if you have any questions, if I'm using some jargon or some acronym, as librarians are wont to do, feel free to ask me a question and ask me to clarify. I don't mind talking about that. So first, I wanted to talk about what is the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. So as the title says, this program encourages families, caregivers, parents, adults, and children to read 1,000 books before they start kindergarten. So really focusing on that 0 to 5 age group and all the learning that happens then. So through this program, you can really showcase and promote the importance of reading, of providing opportunities for adults and children to bond and spend quality time together, to help with baby brain development, which we all know is so important. And the cool thing about this program is that it's both a challenge and a celebration. So it gives families a goal to work towards, which can oftentimes make it a little bit easier for people to work on a project like that. And also it has really nice built-in ways that you can help families celebrate their progress, celebrate their learning, and cultivate that love of reading. And you know, while 1,000 books sounds like a lot at first, it actually isn't. If you read one book each night, you'll reach 1,095 books in 3 years. So, you know, at first glance, some people are like, "Oh my God, that's so many," but it's really not, and it's actually quite doable. And I think especially if you encourage families, they'll find that they go by pretty quickly. So the core components of this program are: one, signing up families and tracking books; two, families reading the books; and then three, figuring out how you want to celebrate that progress. And then within these components, you have endless options. You could do this on a shoestring budget, or you could make this as big as you want it to be and as big as your community wants it to be. You'll hear a little bit more about how flexible and customizable this program is when Jamie and Alan are talking. But a good starting point to learn about this program would be the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten website, which is linked here. And actually, let me grab that link again and stick it in the chat box if any of you want to click on that during the webinar. There's also information on that website about like the history of the program, which I believe started in Nevada, or maybe No, I think it's Nevada. um, and has like different resources that you can use. A lot of libraries just use this logo that you see here, the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, read it and reap. um, so you're more than welcome to use those materials, but a lot of other libraries also create their own logo too, which is totally fine. Um, and just to help you all start thinking about what you might need to consider, here are some good starting questions for planning, something that you can think about during this webinar while Jamie and Ellen are talking, and then also beyond. So how do you want to track the books read, either through paper or electronically? Whether or not you want to do prizes, you don't have to, but if you do want to, what kinds? Having a theme of some sort, if that's what you would like to do, creating a web page with information, and seeing what sorts of supplemental materials you might want to have. So again, you can think about these questions, and these are things that Jamie and Alan had to consider themselves when they were creating their program, and they'll talk about how they made their decisions. And then lastly, before we moved into the panelist section, I did want to show you a list of other libraries around the country that have 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten programs. There are many, many, many more out there. This is just what I pulled from a very quick Google search. And I linked the website for each library here in this PowerPoint, so you can click on that afterwards. But I would recommend looking around to see how other libraries organize their program, how they take advantage of certain resources in their community, and to shamelessly steal anything that looks good to you, because that's what we all do in library land. And it's sometimes helpful to see what structures are out there, and what you might be able to use. And you can see here, this is a collection of some of the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten logos that are out there. So again, you can use the free one from the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten website, but you can also create your own, as you can see here, with all of these super cool ones. So next, I am very excited to pass things over to Jamie Greco from the Glacier County Library, and she'll tell you about her library's 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. So Jamie, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Amelia. Welcome, everyone. We are a very small rural library in northern Montana, and actually we offer it also at our Browning Branch Library in Browning, Montana, which is on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation. So our county has been undergoing some severe budgetary issues for the last several years, and it seemed like every time we turned around, we were having to cut staffing and cut programs. We cut our Lego program, we cut our Makerspace program. So we were kind of at a point where we were feeling a little discouraged. And this 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program is something that I had been looking at and been interested in trying to get up and going for a couple years. And I know it sounds probably kind of crazy that in the middle of pulling back on everything else that we would implement something new, but we were looking for something positive to do that was fairly passive and wouldn't require a lot of staff time, so that instead of seeming like we were taking things away, that we were at least doing what we could to still carry on with our programming. So I sat down and had a discussion with, first of all, one staff member, Rose, that she helps me with Storytime, which is the one program that our early literacy Storytime we have not had to cut back. So we sat down and had a discussion as to what we thought we needed to do to get it implemented. And basically, we just decided we needed the materials. We looked at what type of prizes we wanted to have. And I think maybe this would be where we can go to our next slide, please. There we go. So we just decided on some very simple prizes from Orient. These happen to be from Oriental Trading. Our Friends of the Library group were generous enough to provide for that. And so we then just decided at what implements, how many prizes we could afford and what implements of reading that we wanted to give them out at. So the Upstart Demco company has these wonderful materials that are, easy, ready-made, which is nice. Again, something we needed because we didn't have a lot of staff time to put anything together. And so we ordered the basic posters and some bookmarks and the reading records, and then a few prizes from the other company. So they have some stickers that the kids, they seem as happy with the sticker as they do their prizes. They are excited about getting those. So for every 100 books read, they receive a sticker. And then just to encourage them and keep them going, then they get the choice of a little finger puppet at 200 books. 500 books, they get the little reading medal that says I love reading. And then 700 books, the little rubber ducky. And when they reach the 1,000, they get the little stuffed bear that says I love to read, and then their reading certificate. So we've just kept it very simple. We began to promote it through our early literacy story time, introduced it there, and then did some posts on Facebook just sharing that we were starting the program, and then our local newspaper did a really nice article on it also. My coworkers put together an awesome book display. The 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten site has a list of books your child should hear before kindergarten, which, as you well know, you have some parents that are just fine with going and choosing whatever books they want to read with their kids. And then we had a few parents that were just, they wanted to read the books on the list, which was fun. I mean, that was great too. We introduced it that they could use either the form where they can either check off or put a sticker on the form that reading record that we got from Upstart, or the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten also has the free app that they can download. And so we had some parents that were really into that. But I would say probably at this point, most of our parents are tracking with the paper record. A lot of them, I think it's more visual for the children, and so they like that part of it. Maybe we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So again, I have amazing staff, and they're very supportive. We had this discussion before we started, and they were on board with it. So this is a bulletin board that they did up for our keeping track, and so their little name tags get moved around as they accomplish their goals. So, and that is actually, the placement of it is really nice too, because it's on your way down. Our story time area is in our basement meeting room, and so they see that bulletin board all the time before they go down. So that works out really well, and it promotes it with the public and lets other people know that they can participate also. Let's go to the next picture, please. So one of our biggest way that we've been able to get the word out is through Facebook posts. So every time they complete 100 books, the little poster sign that you see in her hands, those are available again on the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten site. The materials that they have on there are, free, easy. You can adapt them, or you can just see if you're like us and we're in a pinch and in a hurry. They work really well. And so we just have them hold up the little sign, take their picture, with the parent's permission, post it on Facebook. And that, of course, again, we are in a small rural area community, but that has gotten the word out to so many people. It's amazing. And people that we don't even see in the library will comment on that either on our Facebook page or, for example, a while back I went in the grocery store, and of course the last thing on my mind was story time because or the 1,000 Books program, and because I was busy getting groceries, and the clerk said, "Oh, well, you really have those kids reading, don't you?" And I kind of looked at her for a minute, and I couldn't figure out what she was talking about. And then I realized that she was one of them that often comments on the pictures that she sees on Facebook and congratulates the children. And so the awareness that it has brought to the community is pretty amazing. And she just went on and on about how wonderful she thought that was, that the library was doing this. So it promotes a lot of goodwill also for your library. We started our program probably, I think it was last May, so shortly before summer reading. And we've found that it's been fairly easy and not stressful for our staff to go ahead and keep it going and encouraging the children. And really, for the couple minutes that it takes, that little bit of an interaction and encouragement has been amazing. The parents, like Amelia stated earlier, it gives them a goal and just that little bonding time with their children. And I think, they're already reading, but I think it just made it a little more fun. And they seem to really be enjoying it. So I think that that's most of what I have to say. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Jamie, I had a question for you about your logs. I think you said that people usually just check things off. And is that what you find what most people do? Like, I've seen some logs where people are like, you can write out the title. And
yeah.
me,
I think, sorry, go ahead.
no. I was just sort of like, well, I don't have any kids, but if I did have kids, I don't think I would write down the titles. I would just be like,
and I think that's
check.
another thing that our parents enjoy about it, because a lot of them do have, maybe a baby and a toddler and a first grader, and so they don't have time to, it would be way more stressful for them to have to write the title down. And so I think they really enjoy that freedom of that. Plus, I think it's a real visual for the child, because they will check it off with the child or even let the child color in the circle. And I know some of our parents have mentioned that. And so that, it helps them to encourage their child that, oh, we read another book, we're getting that much closer.
Yeah. And I would encourage people to take a look. Pinterest is really great for 1,000 books before kindergarten materials if you're looking for different types of reading logs or things like that. But I've seen some really creative things where like, each 100 books is like peas in a pod and you can just color in each pea, or like leaves of a tree and you can color in each leaf of the tree. But it does seem that the check off method seems a little bit easier and more manageable for parents than writing out the whole book title. Although I can see some families enjoying that part too, depending on the family.
Sure.
But yeah, something to consider. Any questions for Jamie? Jamie, do you mind sharing the like general budget that you had for this project?
I don't have an exact number, but I can tell you it was less than $100 for sure.
Less than $100. That's pretty great. That's pretty great.
And that would be for everything, our printed materials and the prizes. So, and we
Awesome.
still have plenty of prizes. We're doing
Cool.
fine.
Oh, Janine has a question. Did you let parents estimate books read to the child before the program started?
Oh, you mean like how many they were planning to read, or I guess
Or I
I'm
guess
not.
if they've read a bunch of books before they officially signed up for the program?
Okay. We did not. I don't see any reason why you couldn't if you wanted to, but we do count books that are read at story time. They can read the same book 10 times and count it 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
But when we started the program, um, we just started from that point on forward. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that, Jamie. Repeats do count. Um, I mean, repeating a book is so great for a child to review vocabulary, to kind of get them into the role of like doing the story themselves. So, there's always those children who have that much beloved book and they want to read it every day. And each time they read it, it counts as another book. So, yeah.
Right, and I think that's another beauty of this program is there's not a lot of rules. It's pretty basic, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the parents enjoy that too. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a real, there's no set theme. I mean, for us anyway, there's no set theme. There's no set,
Mm-hmm.
you have to read 20 minutes a day or 15 or whatever. So it's just go at their own pace and have fun. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jamie, again for sharing. Um, and, if you do have any questions for Jamie later on, feel free to put them in the chat box, and we'll make sure to answer those. But we'll go ahead and move on and go to our next panelist, who is Alan Ellis from the Billings Public Library. So, Alan, I'll let you take it away now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Amelia, could you just go to the first slide? That's fine.
Yes.
Thank you, my dear. So I first wanted to start with why we chose to do 1,000 books before kindergarten. We have a lot of different reading programs at our library. We are a bigger library than Jamie's. We have about 150,000 people in our community, and so we have an opportunity to influence a lot of people. So we have family reading programs, adult reading programs, summer reading program. But every time we had a program and I asked parents who had small children if their child was participating, the answer was always, oh, they're too little. And so that kind of that they were discouraged, and I was very saddened to hear that their child was not going to participate. So I really wanted a program that allowed their littlest ones to be part of the process. And we have found our parents and readers in the library really love a challenge and love the opportunity to make anything a game. And so 1,000 books was the perfect challenge, because it was like, you can do this, you can read 1,000 books before kindergarten. So that was the first inkling of idea of what we wanted to do. So if you can slide Miss Amelia to the next one. So first thing we had to ask ourselves is, were we going to use paper or were we going to do online software? That picture there is the Demco 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten paper that you can download from their website. We already have an online software that we use for majority of our programs, summer reading, adult. And so luckily for us, that software also has 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten included in it. And so since we're already paying for it, we should use it. It has an app. And so there's a picture of it. Read Squared is the software we use. And since our parents know how to use it, it was just a go-to easy sample. A lot of our parents really loved having an app, because they were already on their phones. They could easily log in the books that their children are reading. And if they're participating in like the adult Summer Olympics or whatever reading program they're participating, they can get to that right off the app. The next thing we had to think about was the theme. Yes, like Amelia and Jamie both said, Demco has a theme already, or you can piggyback off of other libraries have done. Lucky for us, our summer seasonal 2 years ago was a graphic artist student in college. And so we used her to design our own graphic. We've always kind of been teddy bears at Billings Public Library, so we used a teddy bear and were able to get her to make us a design for free, basically. And so we went with the picture that's there, and that's on the t-shirt we give out at the end, excuse me, the book bag at the beginning. All of our flyers, our web page has our logo on it, so it's kind of a great way for people to notice our program. Alrighty, next slide, please. Alrighty, so then we wanted to talk about incentives. How are we going to incentivize this program, and at what intervals? Our program was very lucky in that we had a sponsor, or we had an underwriter. Our foundation, which is the grant writing part of our library, was super excited to take on early literacy in the last few years and jumped on board of helping us. So we just kind of had to come up with some ideas of what we wanted them to pay for. We looked at Oriental Trading also. They have great stuff, and so we kind of went with them. We currently give out the book bag when you sign up, and in that book bag there, that orange one, you will see there's a welcoming letter that explains to parents how the program works and the importance of early literacy. There's a bookmark and a flyer with some activities and stuff in it. Then we give out prizes for every 100 books that they read. And so as they're logging the books into the software, it notifies them that they've hit 100 books and that they have a prize to pick up at the library. And so many a day I get a child that runs up to the desk and says, "Where's my prize? Where's my prize?" We give out the little rubber ducky animal, the alphabet rubber duckies, bubbles. We have a couple of businesses in town that have donated coupons so they can go get like a taco or an ice cream. Crayons, puzzles, all kinds of little things like that. We were lucky that we became one of the local nonprofits to get to be a charity for one of the TV stations in town, and so they did a book drive for us, and we got several big boxes worth of beginning reader and board books, so we give those out as one of the incentives. And at the very end, they earn that really cute 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten t-shirt, so they can go to kindergarten wearing a t-shirt that advertises our program and emphasizes the fact that they read 1,000 books before kindergarten. Alrighty, let's see. So I just wanted to point out a couple of the resources that I looked at to start the program. There are many more. Like Amelia said, Pinterest is a great place to start. If you just Google 1,000 books, there's 1,000 sites. There's a lot of information on there, but those are just two that I found really helpful. They have some great starting points. They ask the same kind of questions that Jamie and I asked ourselves about how to start the program. So they're really good. Next. Alrighty, so we were able to look for sponsors throughout the community. First Interstate Bank, Centennial Youth Foundation, Graphic Finesse, and Greater Montana Foundation. So if you're in Montana, the Greater Montana Foundation is very helpful. They are the ones paying for the prizes. They pay for, we run commercials throughout the state about our program, and they help to pay for those. So that's very helpful along with our foundation. So look at people in your community that are looking for a tax break. That's very helpful. They love to look good, and they'll be helping your community with early literacy. So don't forget your friends groups or your foundation, your banks, TV stations, that kind of, those people are helpful. So what's my next slide? Alrighty, getting the word out. That was the important part for us, is once the program started, we started in October, just on October 15th of last year. So we've only been about 5 months. We have just short of 300 kids signed up. Our goal was 100 kids, so we're super ecstatic with 300. You want to look for ways to get the word out. That's why we got a book bag as the first prize to be given out when you register, because it has our logo on it, and when people are taking it out, maybe using it grocery shopping or even using it in the library to fill with library books, it's promoting the program to our families. The brochure and the bookmark next to the bag in the slide have gone out to the hospitals, daycares, anybody in the community who is working with children, our Young Families, Head Start, Friendship House, who else have we given it to? The food banks, anywhere where families are at, we are giving them out. And then you'll see all of our posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We actually encourage our parents to send us pictures of their children reading, to tag us and to tag 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, so we can promote the program with our parents, using our parents. I've also appeared, unfortunately, on several episodes of television in town. One of our local news ladies, Victoria, she's in that picture. She loves us, and she has her daughter in 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, and so she wants to come film a commercial like every couple of weeks. And so I have been on television a lot. And then we also have a page on our website that's just dedicated to 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. Has our logo, talks about the program and why it's important, shows what the app looks like, and then if you have an opportunity, you can go to our website, billingslibrary.org/1,000 books. It has book lists on there that we came up with. Links to the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten website, then links to ways to read to your children at different ages and encouraging them to read. And then every month I post a list of the books that we read during story time. So the parents don't have to try to be writing those down during story time. We post the list, and then they can go through and to count which books they've read. And our app does require parents to write down the books the name of the book and the author. That is one part I wish we could change. I think it's kind of cumbersome for the parents, but I try to encourage them as much as we can to take, to go back to our website and look at the lists of story time books that we've read, so they don't have to try to remember them. So I even have parents taking pictures of the books during story time so they can remember it. And then so the website just encourages them to come back and see more information, to learn more about the program. And we try to give them as much hints and tips and activities that they could do with their child to just continue to make it literacy an important part of their whole lives. Alrighty, what's the next page? I forget what I put on here. Oh, and then pictures of all of our, some of our graduate, if some of our kids that are doing it. Bottom right-hand corner, that is Titus and his mom, Julia. And Titus completed the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program in 3 months. So somebody who took on the challenge as a challenge, and really read through the quickly went through it. They read a lot of board books a day. And again, every book that they read counts. So if they read it, the same book 4 times a day, every day, that still counts. It also helps that we encourage our families during our story times and our books and babies. We talk about, don't forget to register for 1,000 books. Don't forget to include the books in 1,000 books. We give early literacy tips. We're constantly talking about the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program in our already existing programs so that we get the word out. And the nice thing about the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program is that it does not require a lot of work from your staff. Like Jamie said, we are a big library, but we only have 3 people in the children's department at our library. So we're stretched. So I didn't want a program that was going to require extra work of our staff. It took a little time to get it started, but once it's started, it really requires no staff work, except for the few minutes when the kids come up wanting their prize and you're talking to them and encouraging them, or you're helping the parents sign up. After that, there's really not much work for the staff, but it brings people to our library and books are checking out, so our circulation is up. And the community is in love with having little kids read, and our Facebook page and Instagram page are full of children reading. So we've really encouraged the community without a lot of work on our hand, which is always a helpful thing. I think I've covered pretty much most of what we are doing. I see you said that's a good idea. I don't know what it was a good idea, Amelia, but I'm glad.
Yeah, it was the part where you said putting a list every month of the books that you read. So in case parents had missed one or something like that, they could go back and enter it into their app.
Yeah, and they will ask me, and I keep right now I have I think I have November, December, January, February. I keep about 4 months up because I know that parents can't automatically immediately get home and do that. So
Yeah.
I keep about 4 months up for them so that they have time to go back in and log them.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Alan, and for sharing all the stuff that you've done. I did put in the chat box some of the links to the programs or organizations that Alan mentioned. So the Read Squared website, Greater Montana Foundation, their Facebook if you want to check out some smiling faces who are doing lots of reading, as well as their 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten website. So feel free to take a look at all of those. But does anyone have any questions for Alan? Anything else?
There's so much, I mean, there's so much I could say about this program, but the best thing, my favorite part is the fact that it has parents and children reading together and coming to the library, utilizing the library, but it has not added a lot of extra workload to our staff.
Yeah, a lot of bang for the buck.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Cool. Feel free to put more questions into the chat box. We'll just go ahead and continue to make sure that we get all the information in before we reach the hour. But I'll keep an eye out on the chat box for any questions that do come in. And so this next part was just sort of to talk about other ways that you can integrate this program with early literacy work. And Alan and Jamie both touched on a lot of great ways that you can already do this, but here are a few other ideas that we had, as well as, if you have any ideas that you'd like to share, please do let us know, because the more that we know, the more ways that we can get this message out there. So as Jamie and Alan had both mentioned with story times, reminding the adults and reminding the families that before and after you can add these books or add them to your checklist. having registration right there for people to sign up if they're interested, having handouts about the program, book lists, book recommendations, book displays. We all know how important book displays are for getting books that don't get enough love to get them out and about in the community. And so you can do that same thing with a 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten display. There's so many great book lists out there, and I'm sure libraries would be more than happy to have other libraries take those and print them up. So there's tons of resources there. Another idea is to work in early literacy tips. So as Alan mentioned, it's a really great way to encourage that parent-child bonding, and especially the parent as the child's first teacher, to help make reading together a fun and positive experience. Including those early literacy tips can help bump that and make it even more educational and more helpful. So some people include early literacy tips and information in the sign-up packets. Some put them on the reading logs or on their website. For those of you in Montana, or even those of you outside of Montana, you can also sign up for the Ready to Read texting program if you want regular early literacy tips throughout the week. So signing up for the texting program is free. I included a link to that, or actually I did that right at the beginning of the webinar, so let me put that in the chat box again. But you can sign up for the texting program, and a lot of those tips are actually, it's meant for 4-year-olds, but a lot of the feedback that we've gotten, people have said that they're pretty easily able to level things up or down depending on the age of their children. And some of those are things that they can work into their actual reading time with their children, which is great. And in general, it's just important to get, as much information about that out there. And then lastly, partnerships, and the possibility of partnerships with this program. Alan had mentioned working with local businesses and having sponsors, which is awesome. Talking to daycares, talking to schools, sending notices to families about books read that week to add to tracking. So depending on the amount of coordination that you all are able to do in your community, there could be multiple messaging sources, specifically on 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, but also more broadly about early literacy, and working with hospitals or neonatal units to get the babies right after they've been made. And even if it's like, the parents don't immediately like see the value in a program like this, like having that first interaction and having that continued interfacing with families can get them more and more open to the idea and can lay the groundwork for interest later on. So as many different avenues that you can work this into, is worth exploring. So those are just some quick ideas for ways that you can pretty seamlessly integrate this into other things that you're doing. But if you have any other ideas, please feel free to let us know. So if you have any other ideas, feel free to put those in the chat box. We do have time now for questions and just general discussion. And I've put contact information for the three of us here. So if you would like to reach out and talk more with any of us, please do feel free to. Alan and Jamie have been wonderful in working with me on this panel, and they have a lot of really great experience. So please do reach out to them. And Janine had asked, can you please post all these links in an email to us? And yes, I will be sending out, I'll send out an email with the Vimeo link so you all can listen to this recording afterwards, as well as the SlideShare deck so you can look at the PowerPoint, and I will include these links as well as an evaluation, if you wouldn't mind filling that out too, with any suggestions for ways to improve or follow-up topics that you would like us to address as well. So yes, thank you so much for coming today. If you have to head out now, that's totally fine. Otherwise, we'll stick around for a few more minutes and we're happy to answer any questions that you all might have. But thank you, Alan and Jamie, for sharing your experiences with us. And thank you all for attending today. And I will go ahead and stop the recording now.